Good day everyone, my name is Nicole Perez from BSED English 3B and I will be presenting my chosen African literature. The title is We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This literature is a book-length essay and it was first published in 2014 by Fourth Estate. It talks about the definition of feminism for the 21st century. We Should All Be Feminists includes anecdotes and analyses about what it means to be a feminist. She argues that feminist isn't an insult but rather a label that should be embraced by all. First and foremost, let me discuss some background information about the author of the essay. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie was born on September 15, 1977 in Enugu, Nigeria. Her real name is Amanda N. Adichie. She is a Nigerian writer whose works include novels, short stories, and non-fiction. The Times Literary Supplement entitled her as the most prominent of a procession of critically acclaimed young Anglophone authors, which is succeeding in attracting a new generation of readers to African literature, particularly in her second home, the United States. Some of her notable works are Purple Hibiscus, Half of a Yellow Sun, Americana, We Should All Be Feminists, and some of her notable awards are the MacArthur Fellowship, awarded in year 2008, and the International Nonino Prize, awarded in year 2009. Now, let us proceed to the discussion of the book-length essay. In the first part, she mentioned Okoloma. Okoloma was the first person to call me a feminist, according to her, and Okoloma is her friend since they were young. And in December 2005, Okoloma died in a plane crash. And then they had an argument, and Okoloma said that, you're a feminist. And by his tone, Chimamanda considered it as if Okoloma is saying that she is a supporter of terrorism. At first, she was clueless of the real meaning of the word feminist until she got home and she found out its real meaning. Now let's move to the second part of the essay, which is the happy feminist. In 2003, I wrote a novel called Purple Hibiscus. This novel focuses on a couple where the wife ends up as a battered wife. And then many critics are not happy about this novel, especially those who does not support feminism. Because of this novel, some critics became very unhappy, especially those who does not support feminism. An old man approached her and said feminists are women who are unhappy because they cannot find husbands. So Chimamanda decided to call herself a happy feminist, because not everyone's happiness is based on their man or their own husbands. The next person who approached her is a Nigerian lady, and she said that feminism was not our culture, that feminism was an African. Since feminism was an African, she decided that she would now be called happy African feminist. And then the next part is that a friend approached her and said, feminist meant that I hated men. So she decided that she would be a happy African feminist who does not hate men. At some point, I was a happy African feminist who does not hate men and who likes to wear lip gloss and high heels for herself and not for men. Some examples of the words she heard about being a feminist is that you hate men, you hate bras, you hate African culture, you think women should always be in charge, you don't wear makeup, you don't shave, you're always angry, and you don't have a humor, and you don't use deodorant. On the third part of the essay, she remembered a story about her childhood and how she was discriminated by her own teacher. So the title is The Class Monitor. My teacher said that the beginning term of that she would give a class test and whoever got the highest scores would be the class monitor. So she will be the one who is gonna be in charge inside the classroom. I got the highest score on the test. Then, to my surprise, my teacher said the monitor had to be a boy. What even more interesting is that this boy was a sweet, gentle soul who had no interest in patrolling the class with a stick, while I was full of ambition to do so. By that experience, Chimamanda's definition of feminism bloomed, and she knows that inequality is present in that situation. On the fourth part of the essay, she talked about her friend Louise. And Louise said that I don't see what you mean by things being different and harder for women. Maybe it was so in the past, but not now. Everything is fine now for women. That statement is according to Louise, and Chimamanda was very contradicting to that statement because of the discriminations and inequality she experienced from it's either her co-women or other men or other genders that does not support the concept of feminism. And then in the fifth part of the essay, she talked about Lagos. In Lagos, she said that that area in Nigeria is a city like New York, where there were buildings, there were happy people. It's a big city. Since it's a big city, many people are looking for a job, and one of the jobs that fascinates her is when young man finds a spot for the parking of the car owners. Then one night, she and Louis decided to go to a restaurant. And then a young boy approached them and asked if they need a spot for their parking. And then they said yes. And then eventually they found their spot. And the next thing that happened is that Chimamanda opened her purse, get her wallet, and put out her money and gave it to the boy. And then this man, who was happy and grateful, took the money from Chimamanda, and then looked across at Luis and said, "Thank you, sir." Luis looked at me surprised and asked, "Why is he thanking me? I didn't give him the money." Then I saw realization dawn on Luis's face. By that gesture, by that experience, there was discrimination again and inequality. Because women in Africa has much less importance than men. In the next part of the book-length essay, she discussed that men and women are different. Men and women are different. So in literal way, the men rule the world. Physical strength was the most important attribute for survival. The physical stronger person was more likely to lead, and men in general are physically stronger. In this part, she highlights that men ruled the world in the past because physical strength was the most important attribute, and we all know that men are built with physical strength rather than women. However, in the last part of her statement, she gave a good contradiction that not only highlights the strength of the men but in general, including women and other genders. Today, we live in a vastly different world. The person are more qualified to lead is not the physically stronger person. We do not look in physical strength anymore, but it is the more intelligent, the more knowledgeable, the more creative, more innovative. And there are no hormones for those attributes. A man is likely as a woman to be intelligent, innovative, creative. We have evolved, but our ideas of gender have not evolved very much. But again, in the last part, she said that but our ideas of gender have not evolved very much because there is still discrimination between men and women, and there is inequality present in society today. Some people are still giving much more acknowledgement and importance to men than women. The next part of the essay is about the Nigerian hotels, clubs, bar, and its waiters. So in Nigeria, she said that Nigerian female cannot walk alone inside a hotel because the automatic assumption is that a Nigerian female walking into a hotel alone is a sex worker. The next thing that she tackled about Nigerian hotels, clubs, bars, and its waiters is that I cannot go alone into many reputable clubs and bars. So women in Nigeria are expected to be chaperoned by a man before they get into reputable clubs and bars because of the assumption that they are just sex workers who pleases men for money. And in the last part, she talked about each time she walked into a Nigerian restaurant with a man, the waiter greets the man and ignores me. The waiters are products of society that has taught them that men are more important than women. So aside from the discriminations women get in Nigerian hotels, clubs, bars, there is also discrimination when it comes to the restaurants and its own waiters. Nigerian women are ignored because the automatic assumption is that men will spend the money for women. And again, there is a discrimination and inequality for that assumption because not all the time men pays for women's food, but in Nigeria it became their culture. On the next part of the essay, she highlighted women on anger. She said that if you're a woman, you are not supposed to express anger because it is threatening. So even in personal emotions, women are still degraded and women are still receiving much discrimination because they cannot express themselves because according to everyone's eyes or everybody's eyes in society, it is threatening. It is something that a woman should not do. And for me, it's very unreasonable because all of us humans have our rights to express whatever we want. The next part is about gender inequality. So she said that we spend too much time teaching girls to worry about what boys think of them. But the reverse is not the case. We don't teach boys to care about being likable. And that is true. In their society, they spend too much time teaching girls to worry about what boys think of them, and they always expect women to act properly in front of men. Next, we spend too much time telling girls that they cannot be angry or aggressive or tough, which is bad enough, but then we turn around and either praise or excuse men for the same reasons. Women cannot express their anger while men can either be praised or excused. And again, that is not very reasonable because both are human beings who has the emotions that must be expressed in order for them to express themselves freely without judgments of other people. Next, all over the world, there are so many magazine articles and books telling women what to do, how to be and not to be, in order to attract or please men. There are far fewer guides for men about pleasing women. In today's era, the perfection that we see in magazine articles are still present in society. And just like in today's era, the magazine articles and books telling women what to do and how to be and not to be are still present. And I think these articles and books should be turned down because these articles are the main reasons why some people or some women specifically are having insecurities or anxieties, and much worse is that can be a cause of depression. Next, we raised our daughters differently. We must also raise our sons differently. Do a great disservice to boys in how we raise them. We stifle the humanity of boys and the masculinity in a very narrow way. Masculinity is hard, small cage, and we put boys inside this cage. We teach boys to be not afraid of fear, of weakness, of vulnerability. We teach them to mask their true selves because they have to be, in Nigerian speak, a hard man. Aside from the discrimination that women encounter in Nigeria, there is also discrimination about boys. Boys are expected to be a hard man since the fact that they have physical strength. Many people assume that they are also hard on the inside, and that is not a very good example of raising a man. Society should not force man how to live and how to act the way they should be. The next part of the essay talks about masculinity. By far, the worst thing we do to males by making them feel they have to be hard is that we leave them with very fragile egos. The harder a man feels compelled to be, the weaker his ego is. Just like what I have said earlier, people expect men to be hard, not just on the physical, but also on the inside. And with that, the result will be we leave them with very fragile egos. And when we leave men with very fragile egos, their insecurity will rise up and eventually it will cause anxiety to them that they are not doing well enough or good enough, or they do not reach the expectations of the society. We teach girls to shrink themselves to make themselves smaller. We say to girls, you can have ambition but not too much. You should aim to be successful but not too successful, otherwise you will threaten the man. Just like what I've said earlier, in Nigeria, they give so much importance and acknowledgement to men rather than women. So women's success is a threat for men. Why should a woman's success be a threat to man? What if we decide to simply dispose of that word? And I don't know if there's an English word I dislike more than this: emasculation. So here we can see that femininity is not just the problem in Nigeria, but also the emasculation people or the society do to men to meet their expectations. Another point in the essay is the society on marriage. Chimamanda said, I know young women who are under so much pressure from family, from friends, even from work to get married that they are pushed to make terrible choices. The topic of marriage in Nigeria, there is so much pressure given to women because of the expectations of society. But she also added that our society teaches a woman at a certain age who is unmarried to see it as a deep person's failure. So in Nigeria, it is a failure when women at a certain age is still unmarried. And I think that is not something that happens only in Nigeria but also here in the Philippines. Like at the age of 25, elders are expecting women to get married or to have kids and build her own family. Sometimes that is the expectation women are not happy about because some women are enjoying their life working on their chosen path or their chosen career, and for them in today's world, that is part of the toxic Filipino culture. The next part is that the language of marriage is often a language of ownership, not a language of partnership, and the word respect for something a woman shows a man, but not often for something a man shows a woman. Both men and women will say, I did it for peace in my marriage. So in this part of the essay, she concludes that the language of marriage is often a language of ownership because once they are married, the man tends to own the women and there is no partnership between the couple because man's word is more important than the women and every decision is made by the man. Another part of the essay talks about inequality. First, we teach females that in relationships, compromise is what a woman is more likely to do. We raise girls to see each other as competitors, not for jobs or accomplishments, which in my opinion can be a good thing, but for the attention of men. We teach girls that they cannot be sexual beings in the way boys are. If we have sons, we don't mind knowing about their girlfriends, but our daughters' boyfriends, God forbid. We polish girls, we praise girls for virginity, but we don't praise boys for virginity. We make them feel as though by being born female, they are already guilty of something. And so girls grow up to be women who cannot say they have desire, who silence themselves, who cannot say what they truly think, who have turned pretense into an art form. Know a woman who hates domestic work, but she pretends that she likes it because she has been taught to be a good wife material. She has to use that Nigerian word homely. And then she got married, and her husband's family began to complain that she had changed. Actually, she had not changed. She just got tired of pretending to be what she is not. The problem with gender is that it prescribes how we should be rather than recognizing who we are. Imagine how much happier we would be, how much freer to be our individual selves, that we didn't have the way of gender expectations. Next is about the gender roles. Boys and girls are undeniably different biologically, but socialization exaggerates the differences and then starts a self-fulfilling process. Take cooking for example. The majority of famous cooks in the world who are given the fancy title of chef are men. So, cooking, by the way, is a useful and practical life skill for a boy to have. This part, Chimamanda highlighted that cooking, by the way, is a useful and practical life skill for a boy to have. Cooking is a household chore that should be done by not just the woman but also the men. Another example is that I know a woman who has the same degree and same job as her husband. When they get back from work, she does most of the housework, which is true for many marriages. But what struck me was that whenever he changed the baby's nappy, she said thank you to him. What if she saw it as something normal and natural, that he should help care for his child? In real life situations, it happens. A mother's job in taking care of the baby is more heavier than the father's job. The mother's job is to change the diaper, is to make milk, is to take care of the baby whenever the baby is sick, while the father is usually for supporting the baby's financial needs. Next is women on attires. The sad truth of the matter is that when it comes to appearance, we start off with men as the standard, as the norm. Many of us think that the less feminine a woman appears, the more likely she is to be taken seriously. A man going to a business meeting doesn't wonder about being taken seriously based on what he is wearing, but a woman does. Even on attires, there is still discrimination because men are regarded as the standard or the norm. Another part of the essay discusses the femininity. This part of the essay discusses why she have chosen to become a feminist. I have chosen to no longer be apologetic for my femininity, and I want to be respected in all my femaleness because I deserve to be. I like politics and history and am happiest when having a good argument about ideas. I am girly, I am happy girly. I like high heels and trying on lipsticks. It's nice to be complimented by both men and women, but I often wear clothes that men don't like or don't understand. I wear them because I like them and because I feel good in them. The male gaze is a shaper of my life's choices, is largely incidental. Gender is not an easy conversation to have. It makes people uncomfortable, sometimes even irritable. Both men and women are resistant to talk about gender or are quick to dismiss the problems of gender because thinking of changing the status quo is always uncomfortable. Some people ask, why the word feminist? Why not just say you are a believer in human rights or something like that? Because the word feminism is of course a part of human rights in general. But to choose to use the vague expression human rights is to deny the specific and particular problem of gender. It was the way of pretending that it was not women who have, for centuries, been excluded. It would have been the way of denying that the problem of gender targets women. That the problem was not about being human, but specifically being a female human. In this part, she talked about men are threatened by feminism. Some men feel threatened by the idea of feminism. This comes, I think, from the insecurity triggered by how boys are brought up, how their sense of self-worth is diminished if they are not naturally in charge as men. It's like what I have said earlier, men ruled the world in the past because of their physical attributes, and they feel threatened with the idea of feminism because they do not want to be replaced. Some people will bring up evolutionary biology and apes, how female apes bow to male apes, that sort of thing. But the point is this, we are not apes. Some people will say, well, poor men also have hard time, and they do. But that is not what this conversation is about. Gender and class are different. Poor men still have the privileges of being men, even if they do not have the privileges of being wealthy. I was once talking about gender, and a man said to me, why does it have to be you as a woman? Why not you as a human being? Again, there is a concept of suppression because the concept of being a woman is not important for Nigerian people. This type of question is a way of silencing the person's specific experiences. Of course, I am a human being, but there are particular things that happen to me in the world because I am a woman. This same man, by the way, would often talk about his experience as a black man. Now, let's proceed to the part of the essay where Chimamanda talks about culture. What is the point of culture? Culture functions ultimately to ensure the preservation and continuity of people. Culture does not make people, people make culture. In the last part of the essay, she talks about her being a feminist. I am a feminist, and when all those years ago, I looked in the word up in the dictionary and said, Feminist, a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. My great-grandmother, from stories I've heard, was a feminist. She ran away from the house of the man she did not want to marry and married the man of her choice. She refused, protested, spoke up whenever she felt she was being deprived of land and access because she was female. She did not know that word feminist, but it doesn't mean she wasn't one. More of us should reclaim that word. The best feminist I know is my brother Keith, who is also a kind, good-looking, and very masculine young man. My own definition of a feminist is a man or a woman who says, yes, there's a problem with gender as it is today and we must fix it. We must do better. All of us men and women must do better. Before I end my report, let me leave you a quotation from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which states that the problem of gender is it prescribes how we should be rather than recognizing how we are. And that is true in our environment. There are certain expectations or standards that we kept on following, and it creates a toxic culture for the men and women because as human beings has individual talents or individual capacities, and just because you're a woman doesn't mean you cannot do these things, and also just because you're a man you cannot perform things a woman can. For me, being a feminist is a privilege because we care about people's equality, and no discrimination is entertained in that concept. And with that, we can live the way we want to live, and we can move freely without the expectations of society. And that's the end of my report. Thank you for listening. Have a great day ahead.